Okay, just making sure that I'm on here. I'm actually, there we go, it just turned 12 o'clock. Okay. Happy Monday. For me, it actually is a very happy Monday because it's raining outside. And I know I'm probably in the minority on this, but I love it when it rains. It's one of the things that makes me the most happy. Good afternoon, Stacy. How you doing? Danny, what's going on, man? Okay. Who we got? Chris, how you doing, brother? All right, so I'm continuing the discussion on the 5 pillars of health, which are eat, move, recover, play, connect. And these are all areas and practices, lifestyle behaviors, habits, call them whatever you will, that are increasingly falling under the category of what's known as lifestyle medicine. All of these different pillars individually have a great impact on your health and your wellness, but when you put them together, when you combine them, they have a really, really comprehensive impact on your overall health and well-being. I think a lot of the time we think mostly of exercise and nutrition when we think about being healthy. And certainly exercise and nutrition are super important, but there are these other parts of our lives that are equally important and that make equal contributions to our overall health and wellness, like sleep, meditation and stress management, play or finding activities that you can get absorbed in and lost in, social connection. So there are a lot of different aspects. So today I want to talk about play, the concept of play, and I cringe a little bit when I say that because it sounds ridiculous, it sounds kind of stupid and juvenile, but the reality is that it serves a very important part of your life and it contributes quite a bit to your overall health and happiness and well-being. And there is actually more and more emerging science on the side of really investigating play and the benefits that play can have on your happiness and on your health. Now, this will probably be the shortest of all of the 5 pillars because although there is more and more emerging science that talks about and quantifies the value of play in your life, there just isn't a lot of research yet, but there is some research. So let's talk about the concept of play. Play isn't just a waste of time. It's not just frivolous. Play has been shown to shape the brain, to foster creativity, to foster empathy, to improve growth factors in your brain like BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So there are some really significant developmental and cognitive and physiological benefits that come from straight up play. It's a real thing. And actually, there is a belief that play deficit is actually a real thing. Play deficit, like sleep deficit, that when you are not getting enough of it in your life and you have a deficit of play in your life, that there are negative consequences from that, much the same way that there are when you don't get enough sleep. So there are all of these benefits that have been quantified through research that pertain to play. This is not just a waste of time. So let's talk about what play is really. Now, first of all, there are 7 properties of play. The first is an apparent purposelessness to it. In other words, it's done for its own sake. It's not something that you're doing for a reason other than the fact that it's something that you really enjoy doing. The second property of play is that it's voluntary. Nobody's forcing you to do it. It's not a requirement. It's something that you really just want to do. The third one is that there's an inherent attraction to it. It's just something that inherently you enjoy doing. Property number 4 is a freedom from time or a loss of time while you're doing it, or the concept of flow, which is something that I will talk a little bit more about in a couple minutes. Property number 5 is a diminished consciousness of self. So you lose your self-consciousness because you're so absorbed in it. You don't care how you look while you're doing it. Property number 6 is that there is improvisational potential, meaning it's not a scripted activity. And property number 7 is what's called continuation desire, meaning that when you finish it, it's something that you look forward to doing again in the future, or that you are reluctant to stop doing because it's something that you really enjoy doing. So yes, there are actually 7 properties of play, different characteristics that actually define something that makes up a play activity or just a fun activity. So how do you discover what you like doing? Something that is play for you. Now I'll tell you that for me, I think this is probably the toughest of the 5 pillars of health. I have my nutrition pretty dialed in. I have my exercise habit very dialed in. I'm getting much, much better on my sleep and on my stress management, my meditation, my mindfulness. And I do fairly well when it comes to social connection, although I'm an introvert, so I don't need to have as much social connection as a lot of other people do. But when it comes to play, that's where I really struggle. I've been self-employed for over 20 years, and I've talked to a lot of other, business owners about this as well, and it's not uncommon, and this goes for a lot of different areas of people's lives, but as a business owner, I know that for me, I can get really just, completely gobbled up by my preoccupation with my business, with making sure that things are functioning properly, focusing on the health and well-being of business, because that's my livelihood, so it makes sense. But it's hard for me sometimes to just remember to take the time to do things that I just enjoy for the sake of doing without having any specific purpose behind it, that I'm doing for fun. And part of it isn't just that I forget to take time. Part of it is that I have a hard time really identifying things that I love to do, things that I really get lost in, things that I do that have and represent or embody all of those 7 properties of play. So how do you figure out what it is that you love to do? How do you figure out what the things are that you would consider to be play? Well, there's not really any formula, any guaranteed formula for this, but one thing that is recommended is to think back to when you were a kid and think to the things that you loved doing then, the things that you did just for fun before mortgages and kids and all of the concerns and anxieties of adulthood came in to push all that fun stuff out of our lives. What are the things that you really used to love to do? And I think it's a worthwhile exercise to sit down and really kind of think about that. Now, some of those things that you did as a kid may resonate with you as an adult, and some of them may not. I used to love to read fantasy sci-fi books and play Dungeons and Dragons, okay? Not embarrassed in the least. Totally get that that's a geeky thing to do. I don't care. I loved doing it. Tried to do it as an adult. I've tried reading sci-fi books. I've tried reading fantasy books. It's not quite the same thing. And I think once in my late 20s, when I was living in New York City, I tried playing Dungeons and Dragons with some buddies. And it really turned into like Dungeons and Dragons and, how many shots of vodka you could take. So it really, it was quite a different game than when I was a kid. And there are just some things that you can't necessarily do as easily as an adult as you did when you were a kid, but it's a good starting place. So think back to some of the things that you used to enjoy doing when you were a kid, and probably a lot of those things, or at least some of those things, may qualify as things that you would still enjoy doing just for the sake of doing them now. So what are some of those things? Well, I think, and I'm not the only one, but that things that are really valuable from a play perspective are things that enable you to find what's called flow. Now, flow is not a made-up term. Flow is an actual concept that was coined by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who is a Hungarian psychologist and has made a career off of really talking about and discussing the intricacies and the properties of flow, or I think he calls it optimal experience. Also, flow is really just being in the zone, doing something that you love doing so much that you lose your sense of time. You get so absorbed in it that all of a sudden you look up and it's 4 hours later and you're like, wow, where did the time go? And you were so lost in it and so engrossed in it and enjoying it so much that time just really lost its meaning to you. So that's really kind of the definition of flow. And some things that might help you find flow would be things like surfing or music. Sitting down, and I envy people who love to play music, who sit down and they start playing the guitar, start playing piano or something, and then all of a sudden 4 hours pass. I've never found that same love for music, but music would be a great one, or art, or it could be something like knitting. It doesn't have to be, it could also be a physical activity, like I said, surfing, free climbing or rock climbing, yoga, trail running, mountain biking. Those are some of the physical things that you might do, but some of the non-physical things might be like reading. I actually do love to read, so I get lost in reading, and that's kind of a flow activity for me. Things like knitting, gardening is one that I enjoy doing. Painting, playing games, as long as they're not competitive games. Those sometimes kind of lose the quality of flow and play. But those are some of the things that kind of off the top of my head occurred to me might qualify as flow activities. But it's something that absorbs you in a positive way. So one of the action steps that I would recommend on the play side of things for your life is finding and really exploring things that enable you to get lost in flow. And these are things that are just beyond your current level of skill. They have to be a little bit challenging. If they're not challenging, they're going to be boring for you. And if they're too challenging, they might create anxiety. So there's kind of a sweet spot in which they are just a little bit challenging for you, but not so much that they overwhelm you. So flow activities have to be a little bit challenging in order for them to remain engrossing for you. And it can't be a passive activity. So flow activities are things that you're actually physically or mentally or both physically and mentally engaged in. So in other words, watching TV does not qualify as a flow activity. But one of the things that's generally recommended when you're trying to find play in your life is to find and nurture activities that enable you to find a sense of flow, where you just get absorbed by time, or are so absorbed rather in the activity that you get lost in time and time passes without you even realizing it. So some of the other things that you might do are playing games like board games. Even video games will qualify. The one thing that you have to be cautious of is be cautious of online games where you're competing with other people, because research has actually shown that can increase your anxiety instead of kind of enabling you to find flow in that particular activity. But games and board games are great because they promote pro-social activity. If you're playing with other people, they can also kind of involve things like problem solving and a challenge on that front. They improve self-efficacy, which is the process of just simply becoming better and gaining confidence in your ability to improve in a particular area. And playing games like this can also reduce anxiety and depression and help boost your mood. And there's also a growth and learning context when you're playing games. So playing games is often cited as a go-to activity for adding some play and some flow into your regular life. The other thing is join a group. You can join a group that has a common interest. That is something in which you have a shared interest with other people, because that again also fosters a pro-social activity. Just make sure again it leaves you feeling replenished and not diminished. So you want to do something that feeds you and it doesn't drain you. So that's kind of the caution against getting involved in too many competitive activities, because if it becomes too competitive, that can kind of take you out of the realm of play and just doing something for the sake of doing it, and move you into a different room in which you become so fixated on winning that it can actually impede your ability to have fun doing the activity. So that's kind of a summary of the concept of play. Play is a very, very important feature in our lives. It's great for fostering creativity and empathy. It's great for stimulating growth factors in our brain, for developing social connections, for reduction of stress and anxiety, and finding flow activities has been shown to be enormously beneficial, not only for our health and wellness, but also just for quality of life and really enjoying things. So that is a summary of play. I mean, I can't really talk about it that much more than that, because it's a very simple concept as long as you understand that play really has to be something that is done simply for the sake of doing it. You're not doing it out of obligation. Nobody's making you do it. Nobody's telling you to do it. It's not scripted. You lose your sense of self-consciousness while you're doing it. You're sad when you have to stop doing it, or you're looking forward to being able to do it again in the future, and you just lose your sense of time, and you inherently enjoy doing it. It's just something that you enjoy doing. So that's it. That is a brief summary. Well, I don't know how brief it was, 15, 16 minutes. But that is a summary on the concept of play. Don't overlook this in your life. We always look to the obvious factors or characteristics that make up health and wellness, like exercise and getting enough sleep and eating properly. Don't ignore those non-exercise or nutrition-related factors, like finding things that you enjoy in your life, and fostering positive relationships and social connection in your life, which will be the fifth pillar that I'll talk about next week. Pillar number 5 is connect, and we'll kind of take a look at the value of social connections from a health perspective and from a happiness perspective. That's it for today. If you have any questions about anything, go ahead and leave them in the comments section below, and I'll answer them. Outside of that, go play, man. Do something fun. It's raining today, which is when I love the rain, so I'm actually going to go and I'm going to run in the rain, which may sound absolutely horrific to most people, but it's something that I love to do. So that's something that kind of checks the box for me when it comes to play. Anyway, hope you had a great weekend. I hope you have a great week, and I will look forward to talking to you soon. Actually, tomorrow at noon, I'm going to be picking up my conversation with my friend Colin Triplett, where we left off a couple weeks ago. We were talking about mindset. Colin owns a company called Modern Happiness, which is a mindset coaching company, and we were discussing mindset, and so we're going to pick that conversation up tomorrow at noon and continue talking about mindset and fostering a growth mindset, fostering a positive mindset. And so tune in and hope you enjoy. Thanks for stopping by, guys. Have a great day, have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.